So I'd like to speak now on a very sensitive subject, the music of Alan Wasserman, because the next piece is one that I've composed myself. Many know me as someone who studied piano technique over 30 years of private lessons, of weekly lessons, and workshops and all sorts of things. But a lot of people don't know, I also spent 12 years having 2 teachers at the same time, studying theory and composition, because I really I love the discipline of composition intensely. So I want to share with you a piece I wrote in 1985, but it's written as an homage to the great Arnold Schoenberg. And Arnold Schoenberg is working in the early 1920s, mid-1920s, and these theories of his carry forward into the 1930s, 40s, even 50s, because Schoenberg's a very influential teacher. And he's teaching a lot of major composers who take his theories and expound upon them as well. And the thinking here is that if we're going to keep opening up harmony and opening up sound extensions, as I mentioned in the Debussy, why not go for having every note be equally important? So instead of having a major kind of sound or a minor kind of sound, let's just create a whole new environment for sound. So he takes the 12 possible notes. You know, there's C, C sharp, D, D sharp, D, etc. And there's 12 of them. So he takes them and he places them in order in what we call a tone row. And purposely creating this tone row to avoid major or minor, to avoid tonality. And the tone row you're going to hear now for my piece goes... These are the 12 notes in order that you'll be hearing. Let's see, so I should say quickly that it's not quite that simple. He takes the 12 tones and then you can run them backwards, and that's called a retrograde. And then you could run it upside down, meaning if you went up a whole step, you could go down a whole step. That's called a inversion when you do that. Well, you could then run that backwards, you have the retrograde inversion. Then you can put it in starting on any one of the 12 notes. So they make this giant chart called a golden cube that you then start to compose from. Well, I've composed a totally different type of aleatoric piece here. We were speaking earlier, a couple of people around, whoops, my postcard. Thank you, Lisa. That in modern music, composers are starting to use all these weird ways of writing music, and it's starting to open up how you might want to write music. And so I've composed this piece, and this is only a partial piece for Steve in a way, that it's a large circle and my tone row is around the entire circle. Then each of those tone rows has a circle around it, and I'm only playing the first movement, so I've left this blank today. But there would be more of these around if we were doing a 30 or 40-minute piece. But in order to do a 2-minute piece, I'm just doing this. And so this is a type of called graphic notation. It's made so purposely your piece is different every time. And this piece does have a lot of rules, actually, even though it's so shockingly free. One rule is, particularly in this piece, it's a very strict tone row. You must go from one note to the next to the next. Some composers let you go back and forward and back and forward. This is only going forward. But there's a lot of freedom here because the player is free to play the notes for any duration you want. You can hold it as long as you like. You may play it in any octave you wish. You could repeat a note as often as you like. You can play on any instrument you like, as long as you're playing these notes, and there can be as many players as you like. So today I'm playing a solo, but this has normally been done and we've had this piece performed many times, I'm happy to say, mostly with small chamber group. This is a modern classical composition. It takes us into what we sometimes call the avant-garde. And as many of you know here, I'm sure, as they say, life is hard in the avant-garde. And especially as compared to popular music and the like. So, if you would please just quiet your minds, settle down, quiet your thoughts, and just ride the waves of the music. Don't expect to find a certain beat. It doesn't work that way. Just let these sounds wash over you. This is called Cyclical World.